This is Matthew Aaron. I am here with Joel Edgerton. I'm so excited to have Joel on. You may know Joel as Owen Lars from the Star Wars movies. You may have seen him in Zero Dark Thirty. You may have seen him in Gatsby. You may have seen him in Exodus, Ridley Scott, Christian Bale. But I am loving this Joel Edgerton I'm seeing right now because, first of all, I loved Felony. I loved Felony. I can't even tell you how much I love that movie. Like, there's not a word for it for me. And
oh, wow. Thank you, man.
I really loved the fuck out of that movie. And I'll tell you something else. The Gift is a winner. I love The Gift. And I took a friend of mine who usually I'm not going to ruin the movie, but it's so smart and it's so real. And it's a lot like Felony, too, where you don't wrap things up in a tidy little bow, because I'm guessing you understand that's not how the real world works. And these movies are kind of deep-seated in reality. And my friend who usually hates those kind of movies loved this movie, loved it. We flipped over it. We loved it.
Fantastic.
So I want to talk about The Gift, which is in theaters now. Congratulations on your opening weekend. You guys did really well, and everybody saw this movie, and it was great. We were in a packed theater. People were reacting to all the great stuff. The first question I got to ask you is, being a guy who lived in L.A. for years, and now I'm in Chicago making my own movies, but when I lived in L.A., I just thought this was the perfect setting for a movie, that you chose one of these glass houses up in the hills. What a great way to have tension and suspense. Those houses are built for suspense. Was that on purpose, or tell me about how you chose that house?
Well, in many regards, the idea of me making a movie was a hard thing to get to the start line. And, without being, it's not even being falsely humble or even, self-denigrating. On one hand, I felt there was an excitement for me to make a movie, and on another hand, I felt like it was not going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be, and I was just going to have to eat what was on my plate. So if that meant shooting in Atlanta, that was fine. If that meant shooting in Louisiana, that was fine by me. I was going to make it work. Given that the story was could have universally been set anywhere.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, if it's going to be California, which is where Jason Blum likes to shoot all of his movies under the Blumhouse banner, which I was completely happy to do. There were all these conversations like, should we shoot California but pretend it's somewhere else in America? And I was like, well, I just need to concentrate on shooting the best movie I could shoot. So why don't we, if we're shooting in California, let's set it in California. Let's make it work and make use of downtown and make use of the valley. And I thought the one place that people think they feel safe and the one place that people aspire to live in California is up in the hills.
Yes.
At least I know a lot of people that do. And they tend to feel safe when they live up there.
Yes.
Little nod or a little tip of the hat to the Manson case deeper into the movie, which again is reflective of the fact that sometimes you could feel unsafe no matter where you are.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I thought what was great about this, too, and tell me if I'm reading too much into it, but Jason Bateman, who, by the way, gives a career performance, I mean, between this and Disconnect, he's just been outstanding.
Sure.
And Disconnect he did with Frank Grillo, which he's one of my favorites. He's been on the show a bunch of times. You guys did Warrior together. Jason plays kind of an arrogant guy named Simon, and this house kind of gives off the vibe of arrogance. Like, he feels so safe in this house that it could be enclosed in glass. Like, it's just kind of like a subtle arrogance to his character. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it's like happenstance. It worked out that way. But I just thought the location of this movie, I don't know how meticulous you planned everything, because I've directed 2 films now and acted in them. And I know it's a lot of work, and mine are on a much smaller scale. But, sometimes you can be super meticulous, and sometimes you just have to roll with the punches and go with the budget. So I didn't know how meticulous this movie was, but I'll tell you what, it all worked out. It all worked out.
I knew that we wanted to use a lot of glass and reflections, to kind of, in an obvious, sometimes subtle way, underline the duplicity of the characters, which,
yes.
Definitely the duplicity of Simon's character, and also the sort of, to really as you say, as a glass house, it's a beautiful, aspiring place to live, but it can also be a terrifying sort of fishbowl in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in the school of, hire the great people around you and let them be the wonderful, excellent, professional people they are, and allow them to help make the movie as great as it can be. I had a wonderful designer in Richard Sherman who designed of Gods and Monsters, as well as the Twilight movies and a bunch of stuff. And it was really his find. This house was his find. We'd looked at a few mid-century modern houses, of course, but when it came to that house, he just really excited, and knowing that I was excited about him as a designer, when his excitement became infectious, and I really started to try and imagine the movie in that house.
I know what you mean. When my location people choose locations for my movies too, I know. It's just like you trust them so much so that when they're really into it, you're way more open to the idea. You're like, okay, this could be great. And you just kind of know by their skill and their tone of their voice. I totally get what you're saying. And I'll get off the house thing. I'm just in love with that fucking house with this movie. But I just thought it was the perfect metaphor for the movie, glass houses and all. Because there is that metaphor in this movie about glass houses that, this Simon character, I love this movie because this Simon character is not what he appears to be, and this Gordo character is also not what he appears to be. And I'll tell you something, as someone told me they saw this movie and they're like, oh my God, everyone except Rebecca Hall, all these characters are despicable. And I go, I kind of have a sympathy for Gordo, though, to a degree. Now, when you wrote this film, and that's what I'm super impressed with, is your writing on 2 films in a row with Felony and this. Oh, my God, do you know how to craft a script? You make it so, I mean, man, it's not like you're, like, in a weird way, and this is a compliment totally, you're not reinventing the wheel, but at the same time, I'm always surprised by your choices. Is that something you're conscious of when you're writing?
I'm always conscious of I think the different elements of my life as a storyteller, predominantly as an actor and then as a writer, I think they all feed each other, and it's interesting that sort of symptom of my interest as an actor to create the right dimensions of a character that I'm playing, that when I come to write characters, I can never seem to reduce them to this is a bad character, this is a good character. I feel like they need to have elements of each other, and as we do in life and everybody in life, I know a handful of people that I would claim don't have a bad bone in their body and have never made a selfish choice in their life, but they're in the minority. And even the characters in my life, the people in my life who I think are good, have done bad things, corrupt things, selfish things, deplorable moments in their life out of the desire to just get on with things, whatever their motivation. So as a writer, I look for that in the performances. Now, coming to write a genre film, I thought, if I stay true to the theory that in a genre film of the suspense genre, suspense thriller, that nothing is what it seems, then that should extend to the characters as well. Is that why should the movie just be about a good couple besieged by a crazy person? To me, that's not worth the 2 years of my life.
Right, right. No, right. You took
something more interesting.
Yeah, right. You took that Pacific Heights, Fatal Attraction type movie, but you gave another layer to that, like what you perceive to be that Glenn Close, Michael Keaton character, and it totally, I gotta tell you, it makes this the standout of all those kind of thrillers, those domestic thrillers. I mean, I just was so wowed by this. I thought it was just so well written, and I love that your directing style. It wasn't this MTV type directing style. It was very Michael Cimino, kind of like, it was so straightforward, but it works so well. Is that something that you like with movies? You like that straightforward directing style, or do you like when it's more Michael Bay-ish? Not that there's anything wrong with Michael Bay, but maybe it's just not your cup of tea as a director.
No. The things I've always responded to is that you're almost unaware of the camera, and that's not to say the camera's not moving. Stanley Kubrick in The Shining, I'm very aware of the camera many times in that film. However, in general, simplicity is fascinating to me as a filmmaker, and I often think that the path of least resistance is the greatest way to shoot a scene. It's like what is important, what needs to be in the frame, and therefore everything else should be superfluous. Everything else should be trickery.
Yes.
and that's just my personal taste. So I like kind of a certain austerity in filmmaking. I don't mind when filmmakers take the camera off the sticks and off the dollies and held and stuff, but it's about what's in the frame. I think my brother set the tone with that for me, and so same with David Michaud. In fact, all the guys I work with at Blue Tongue, there seems to be that simple what needs to be in the frame austerity to the way that they approach filmmaking, and I think that's rubbed off on me, and it's certainly what I respond to as well.
Well, I think you respond to it for the same reason I kind of respond to that. I mean, I love Tony Scott. He's one of my favorite filmmakers ever, okay? And you worked with Ridley, and they're known for, I'll take the camera off the sticks. I'll take it off the dolly. We'll do handheld. But what I love about your style here is I think it lets the actors really perform. That's the other thing I really like about it is you are concentrated on these people, like fully.
Yeah.
That's
again, as an actor in my life as an actor, I learned so much about actors, funnily enough, being on the other side of the camera for the most part of the shoot, and just how intelligent they are and how much responsibility or how much they take responsibility for the excellence of the storytelling, because the lowest common denominator will sort of infect a movie. I think if someone's not great at what they do, if on the crew level, sure, but as actors, if anybody gives a bad performance, it can really bring a movie down. And I'm talking about even the background artists. I realized there were certain moments where it was like, I know that person's not a speaking role, but next time I make a movie, I'm going to just go, I'm hiring actors for everything. And some background artists are amazing actors in and of, themselves. They turn out great performances. But, you just need to give that space to the actors to work and allow them to contribute, I think. And then they can help make the movie far more excellent than it would have been if you impose your will on them. So giving them that austerity in the camera, perhaps that in a way allows them to feel like a sense of theater, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah, and so I'm really interested in this whole process for you as a first-time director. So on my first film, I was in the editing room, and there were things like, it was so hard to cut because there was so much that needed to be cut, and it's it was we improvised and we used a lot of non-actors, and it was kind of like it was really difficult for me. On my second film, it was scripted. It was really easy to cut, and I didn't have to cut anything painful. Was there anything in the gift, being in the editing room for the first time, that you cut that you were like, I wish I didn't have to cut this, but I do for the movie?
Yeah, there was one. There's a handful of stuff, but you hear the term a lot, kill your babies, when it comes to writing and filmmaking.
Yes.
Obviously, for anyone out there who doesn't know, it basically means sometimes the thing you love the most about a screenplay or a movie actually has to go because it doesn't serve the full picture. And for me, the big baby I had to kill was, and there was a second cop scene. Now, when the Blu-ray comes out,
Wendell Pierce.
You'll see.
Is Wendell Pierce in that scene?
Yeah, Wendell Pierce and Bo Knapp.
Yes, so
who
good.
are just brilliant as two detectives.
Mm-hmm.
They turn up to check on the whereabouts of the dog, and then they do a follow-up visit to the office, which is the scene that is no longer in the movie. And it was so fantastic and had a lot of great sort of elements of theme kind of embedded in there. And you know why I couldn't put it in the movie is because the movie up until that point has everything centered around Robin, the character, Rebecca Hall's character, Robin.
Yeah, and that was a good move.
Suddenly I was breaking point of view.
Yeah.
And it was no longer her point of view. And it was like my mistake as a writer. But the scene is excellent, so I hope people check it out on the Blu-ray.
I agree with you. I think the genius of this movie was you centered it around Rebecca Hall. I think she was outstanding. She would make a killer Rosemary in Rosemary's Baby after watching this movie, I'll tell you that. She was great, man. And Bateman was great. And that leads me to, I love you as an actor, but can I tell you something? You got this great dramatic performance out of Jason, and he's a great dramatic actor. When are we going to see some Joel Edgerton comedy, like a John Hughes-style Joel Edgerton? When am I seeing Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with Joel Edgerton, you know?
Oh, dude, I would love to do that. It's one of the things that has sort of been on my mind lately. I actually did a little meeting, sort of reading an audition for David Gordon Green on a movie a while ago that was quite a broad movie. And, you know, I've definitely got my sights on that at some point because, you know, I like to think that I would do okay in a movie like that. But I've definitely written a couple, and maybe, you know, in the spirit of, you know, my acting life is about mixing it up all the time and being pegged one thing, and maybe as a director should hit that different tone at some point, and I definitely thought it might be nice to make some sort of comedy as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a comedy guy. That's what I do. So I make these like independent like comedies, and I'm from Chicago, so there's a little John Hughes in it. And so every time I interview someone who's amazing as a dramatic actor like yourself, and I'm always looking at the comedy resume, and I'm like, oh man, and David Gordon Green is actually the guy that gave me notes on my first film, and he just he's great, and he just knows comedy so well, and he knows what's interesting. He knows what's interesting on the screen. I love David Gordon Green. Prince Avalanche is one of my favorite movies of the last few years with Paul Rudd and Emile Hirsch, and I love David Gordon Green. And man, who saw The Gift that we wouldn't expect gave you notes on The Gift or anything like that really gave you some kind of like critical note or critical feedback while you were screening this? Like, did Gavin O'Connor see it or anyone like that kind of said, hey, Joel, you know what you should maybe do?
I had a few really interesting films come and see the movie. Definitely Gavin O'Connor came. He was just such a champion and was very supportive of what I was doing. He came to the first preview screening we had. You know, when you show it to people out in the valley and you do your test scores and stuff like that. But you know, one interesting person, Andrew Dominic was is a friend of mine who made Chopper, and he made Jesse James, and you know, Kill Him Softly, and I really love Andrew as a filmmaker, and he's a very harsh critic, and he doesn't like very much, and you know, he's got no filter when it comes to criticism, which, you know, is always, you know, the person you actually really need in one of those sort of early friends and family screenings.
I agree.
He gave me a lot of good feedback, but one really interesting thing he said, which I'll carry with me all the time, is he just made the observation that when somebody shows you their pain, it's very hard to not empathize with them or not like them. That was a really big sort of theme for me over the next couple of weeks, comment about how we were cutting it, considering certain characters do-si-do, and we like one character and then we think maybe he's the villain, and we think I'm the bad guy, and then maybe we empathize with me. Idea that we can hate Jason Bateman, but as soon as we see that we can also gain some empathy back for him. And I was constantly trying to not allow the audience to go, I only hate you, rather than, yes, I hate you, but I also feel sorry for you, you know?
No, I agree, and I don't want to spoil it once again, but there's a moment in the third act where you do empathize again with Jason Bateman, and I'm not talking about the end. I'm talking about in the, I would say, the middle of the third act, where you're like, okay, these guys are fucked up. I feel bad for both of them almost right now. I mean, what a mess.
Yeah.
What a mess. But what a great film. And that's great advice by Andrew Dominic. It's true. It's true. You cannot show the pain of one character. In the second film I did, there is a character all the way to the third act you're kind of neutral with. And then just the way he treats his soon-to-be ex-wife in the third act, you're going to hate him and you're going to empathize with her. And it's just the way it is. I totally get that. Yeah, that's a great note. That's a great note. I mean, it's important as a screenwriter. Do you send your script out to a bunch of friends before you do, like each draft? Do you have a group of friends that you send it to and stuff? Because I send it to some of my harshest critics, and then I actually send it to film critics when it's done before I even like send it out to festivals and stuff, the film, just to get feedback from tough film critics that I know. So what do you do with from the screenplay to the, and we know the filmmaking part, you had Andrew Dominic, you had Gavin O'Connor, people come see it, but the screenplay portion, who reads it, who gives you notes?
Well, we have this lovely collective in Blue Tongue Films, which, you know, comprises of my brother Nash Edgerton, David Michaud, who made Animal Kingdom,
Yeah.
and The Rover, Kieran Darcy Smith, who made Wish You Were Here,
Yep. Great movie.
Sasa, who made Hesha, Luke Doolan, who cut Animal Kingdom, The Square, and is the editor on The Gift. And was nominated for an Oscar for his short film that he wrote and directed called Miracle Fish. And Mira Folks, who's a short filmmaker and writer, who is our one and only lady of the gang and keeps us all even and raises the bar. You know, and we, like, any of us write a screenplay, it goes out to all of us. We all read it and we all give feedback. And because we've got a history that stretches back 15 years with each other and sometimes longer, it's the first point of contact with the screenplay. And I also, importantly for a female voice, had Rebecca Yeldon, my producer, who produced Motorcycle Diaries and Anvil, Story of Anvil, and The Kite Runner and a number of other films, who's not just a good numbers producer but a really creative eye. Really challenged me on the script, considering specifically that the real axis of the movie was a female character. So I had lots of people beating me up in good, healthy, critical ways.
Yeah, I thought you wrote this female character exceedingly well, and I think I write females all right, but I have a confidence issue with it being a male. Do you ever have like a confidence issue with writing a strong female character, like you're not sure if you're hitting it right because it's a female?
I oftentimes think that, you know, when you're not something, you sometimes, you know, don't underestimate how well you can observe something when you're not that thing. And so for that measure, without being arrogant about it, I think, you know, that men can actually write good female characters, but they do need a little help here and there. And sometimes there's more pressure for us to write masculine characters because maybe we're too wrapped up ourselves in what really is a man, what makes a man. You know, I think, you know, filmmakers who are British sometimes make really great American movies, and Americans sometimes make great, you know, European movie subjects. So if you're not a thing, maybe you're actually in a good, you have a good stand back point of view on something.
No.
Anyway, that's my positive spin on it.
No, I mean, I dig it. I totally know what you're saying. I guess just for me, it's like I'm a little neurotic when I'm writing a screenplay. The first draft I know is always going to suck, and then the second draft is like written basically in red because it's all different. And it's just like I always have the women characters. I'm always like my mind is stuck on. I'm like, oh man, I hope I'm doing them justice. And yeah. I mean, for me, that's just how it is. Now you got a lot of great films coming out this year too, like Black Mass and Jane Got a Gun is coming out I think early next year, and Loving. Now Black Mass, I got that release date tattooed on my ass. I am so pumped for that movie. Can you I'll edit it out of the interview if you don't want to, but can you guarantee me that that's a good movie? Please tell me it's going to be as good as it looks.
I can guarantee you that it's a good movie. I can
right.
actually guarantee you, and I'll extend the right for you to kind of demand your money back direct from me.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Because you're probably going to see it for free, aren't you?
I'm no. I like paying for my movies. I even did that when I lived in LA.
Well, if you do pay for it and you don't like it, just give me a call and I'll give you your money straight back.
I guarantee
you.
I know you're working with 42 West right now, and 42 West of the publicity firm. They used to invite me to 1 million screenings, and they're like, Matt didn't come to this one. I would literally tell my producer, oh, yeah, I went out and paid for it the other day. Whatever. You know, like, I like going to the movies still, you know? I don't like going to, tiny little screening rooms. I like going to the films.
No, I don't either. I like going to a big, full cinema. That's one of the things I've been really excited about. Is that on the Gift is, you know, I don't like hearing that people can't get into the cinema because it's sold out, but it does make me excited to know
that's awesome.
anyone who is watching it in that first week is watching it with a full crowd, because it's the kind of movie that I want people to sit together in a full audience.
Oh, it was so good. We were jumping. I mean, oh, my God. There were so many people in that theater. There was jumping. There was gasping during two of the critical moments in the film. I mean, and women were really reacting to this movie. I don't know what the demos were, but in my theater, like, women were just so into this movie, and I think that's a testament to how well you wrote Rebecca's character and how good Rebecca is in the role. I mean, I just think that women really reacted to this movie, and men too. Like I said, me and my friend went, and we were fucking in love with this movie. I love that you left it kind of open-ended. I love that you did that with Felony, by the way. Once again, if people haven't seen Felony is on Netflix on demand right now. You can watch it if you have Netflix. Just type in Joel Edgerton or type in Felony, and you can watch it right now. Kinky Boots is also on demand on Netflix, which is a great Joel Edgerton movie. Rover, you can see on Amazon Prime right now for free, and I suggest doing that as well, even though you just kind of wrote the story for that one, if I'm correct. And The Gift's in theaters, and The Gift is a movie you've got to see. And I'm telling you, I'm not a big enough deal for you yet, but one day we're making a comedy, because I think I'm serious. I know you got the chops to be a great comedic actor. I can tell. I mean, I just can tell.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude.
I appreciate that.
It's the same thing I tell Grillo all the time, because Frank Grillo says to me, he's like, you know, I play the action guy. Like, he basically, not in those words, but he says it like that, you know? Like, he doesn't want to play the romantic comedy guy. And he's done some great dramatic work, too. But he doesn't want to do the romantic comedy thing, and I get that. Fuck romantic comedies to a degree, unless it's as good as, like, Trainwreck or something. But, I mean, there is a world where the Frank Grillos and the Joel Edgertons could make a killer fucking comedy. I'm telling you. I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
I
think Grillo would make an excellent comic actor.
Oh, he wouldn't
need to change his style of performance.
I was going to say,
he's
he's the straight guy and you're the funny guy. You're the John Candy, he's the Steve Martin. And, you know, another guy I would love to see direct a comedy, and I've told him this a million times, is Carnahan. And you worked with him on Smoking Aces, which is kind of close to a comedy. I guess it's a dark comedy.
Yeah, I think Carnahan's an excellent director.
Oh, he's great.
Excellent gentleman.
He's great.
He's such a great guy. And he creates one of the most fun sets I've ever been on.
Oh, I bet. He's a blast. We did a pilot together, and it was something him and I created, and he's just, I love that guy, and he gave me my first opportunity, and I'll never forget him for it. He's the best. He's a great guy. Joel, I'm so excited that The Gift's doing well, man. I really hope you come back and do the show sometime, whether it be Black Mass or whatever you want to promote. Jane Got a Gun, whatever, but please promise me you're going to continue being an auteur and doing some directing, writing, and acting, because I'm telling you, I'm loving this, man.
Oh, I'm definitely going to do it. I didn't realize how much I was going to love the experience until I was, you know, right in the middle of it, and I know I'm going to do it again.
Oh, and thank you, by the way, once again, thank you for Felony. I want to beg people to see this movie if you haven't seen it yet. Tom Wilkinson, Jay Courtney, and of course you, Joel Edgerton, and I mean you wrote it, and Saville, is that how I pronounce it? Saville?
Matthew Saville.
Saville? Okay. He's great.
Babel, yeah.
Yeah, great directing in that movie. Just such a good movie, and it's so much like The Gift. I can tell you definitely have there's already a Joel Edgerton type of film going on here, because it starts out kind of like a film you think you've seen before, and it just goes in all these different directions. My favorite thing about Felony, before I let you go, is the tiny things. It's like Tom Wilkinson's ringer on his phone cracks me up. There's a little gallows humor in the film. Like all the tiny things in that film are out fucking standing, man. You really capture, you as a writer, you really observe. I can tell that you're very observant. You know what's great? I'll tell you what's great. And this has to be from the script, or if it's from the director, God bless, great. But in the opening of the movie, before you get shot, I'm not ruining anything, you don't die, but you get shot at the beginning. While you're looking for this criminal, your walkie-talkie is still talking. In most fucking movies, it would be completely silent, like nothing else is going on in the world except you hunting down this criminal. There is still a world happening, and I don't know if that was you or the directing, but man, out fucking standing. The tiny things you nail, man, and you did in The Gift too.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. You're welcome. I know it's easier to talk about other people's films than your own, so I'm gonna be done telling you how great you are. It's probably weird for you, but thank you, Joel, for coming on so much. I'm so excited that you were able to do this, and it's been a real treat for me to have you, man. I hope to have you on again.
Yeah, well, let's do it again. Let's do it for Black Mass.
Oh, I would love to do it for Black Mass. I'll have Pat Tobias hit you guys up. Thank you so much, Joel.
Hey, man, absolute pleasure.
All right, have a safe trip back, okay?
Thanks, man.